Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm really nervous for whatever reason to be filming this video today. On my last video, I shared with you guys that I am going to be having a hysterectomy soon, and that was followed up with a lot of questions and concerns about the surgery, my recovery, in general, how I'm doing right now. So I figured why not film a little bit of a follow-up video where I just answer some of those questions. So that's what we're going to be doing today. How do you stay so positive throughout this process? I'm definitely not always positive about this. As you guys can imagine, this is kind of a big deal to be going through, and there are definitely days when the weight of it impacts me more so than others. I think it is really important for me to remind myself what all this surgery is going to be giving to me versus what is going to be taking away. So I think overall that's how I'm staying positive, but like I said, I'm definitely not always like 100% a-okay with this situation. It is very up and down and just a rocky road to go down. Will you be out of pain after this? I will not be entirely out of pain after this. 90% of my pain is uterine pain, so by not having my uterus, that will kind of eliminate a lot of the pain that I'm experiencing, but there are still other parts of my body that are affected by chronic pain that will not be magically fixed after this surgery that I will still have to go through. Because endometriosis is normally not diagnosed early on, there's a 7-year average before you get your diagnosis. By the time that some women end up getting their diagnosis, there's permanent damage to organs. I'm still gonna have some of that, like bladder pain, and I have nerve pain and all that will still be there, but 90% of my pain will be eliminated after this. So that's awesome. How did you decide who all has a say in this decision? I'm the kind of person that does whatever I want, and I don't give other people really any say-so in how I do things. That's just kind of how I am wired. So yeah, I never really asked permission from anyone other than like my doctor, obviously. I definitely had conversations leading up to this decision of like, I obviously talked about it with my mom and just asked for like her opinion, like, hey, theoretically, if I did this, what would be your thoughts? Taylor and I had like a lot of conversations leading up to this decision as well. It's just like, hey, does this impact things? And if so, like how? Are you cool with this if I do this? I thought hysterectomy wasn't a cure for endo. I meant to touch on this in my last video, but obviously I was really overwhelmed and there was a lot I was trying to communicate, so I totally forgot. But I do want to reiterate that at this point, me and my doctor both think that my chronic pain is coming from adenomyosis, not endometriosis. I have been in remission from endo for almost a year now, so that's great. But because I still have chronic pain after excision surgery, and a PSN, we are now thinking it's adenomyosis, which unfortunately adenomyosis cannot be diagnosed officially until after hysterectomy, so I will not have that answer until after it's all said and done. But yeah, hysterectomy is not a cure for endo. If your endo is located only in the reproductive region, then hysterectomy might help. But because endo, like I said before, normally isn't diagnosed early on, by the time a lot of women realize that they have it, it has spread outside of the reproductive region. Therefore, hysterectomy will not cure all your problems. So yeah, there's that. I feel like I'm answering these questions really poorly. Okay, how have you navigated losing your fertility at such a young age? What I will say about infertility is that it is an ongoing process. I can get to a point right now where I am at full acceptance over the fact that I'm not going to be able to have my own children, and I can be okay with it, but in 2 to 3 years when all of my friends start their own families, I'm gonna have to restart this whole entire process of learning to accept that this is just my body, this is the way things are, and it is just a constant journey that you have to kind of re-navigate every few years. One thing I am trying to remind myself of is it's really easy to point fingers at the hysterectomy and blame my infertility on the hysterectomy, but I know good and well that even if I decided right now not to have this surgery. With the condition that my body is in, the likelihood that I will be able to conceive and or carry a child is very limited. So I get comfort in reminding myself that the hysterectomy is not what's taking away my fertility. My disease has, and even without the hysterectomy, I would still be in the same place. And just reminding myself that this is a process I'm going to have to continuously go through and restart for the rest of my life. And that means that some seasons are going to be easier to accept and some seasons are going to be a lot harder. So I'm trying not to put a lot of pressure on myself to get on the whole acceptance train right now with the mindset that I will forever accept this, and once I finally get to that place, I'm good to go, because I know that that's not realistic. How's your mental health holding up the longer you go through this? My mental health has surprisingly been extremely good. My dad and I were talking the other night, and I told him that this is like the first situation I've ever gone through in my life where I haven't resorted to like suicidal tendencies, which is kind of like a really big deal, because once you deal with depression, and especially for like a long period of time, you realize that your default mindset when anything gets hard is to just think about offing yourself. I'm trying to be careful with how I word this because I don't want to trigger anyone. And it could even be like really little things like, oh, my check engine light came on in my car. I am just gonna resort to thinking about not healthy things. And so with this being such a huge deal, I am extremely proud of myself for not even once slipping into those thoughts. This is really the first time in my life that I have ever been capable of doing that. So I'm just really extremely proud of myself. My mental health really is best case scenario given the circumstances. I will say that my anxiety is not doing so great. There's so many decisions that you have to make in regards to a hysterectomy that you don't think about until you're having to make these decisions, and each and every single one of them has such a large impact on your future, and it's impossible to know what the right decision is. So there's a lot of anxiety that comes from that, and a lot of pressure to make the right decision, even though nobody knows what the right decision is. The anxiety is kind of manifesting in like weird ways. I'm getting random bouts of like really hardcore sensory overload, and that's not super fun. I currently am wearing all of my socks inside out because the seam that runs on the inside that like normally rests against your toes is driving me insane and like will literally send me spiraling into sensory overload. So it's just like really random things like that. I'm finding it really hard to have conversations with other people if like the TV is going and there's noise coming from the TV. For whatever reason, my mind just can't process both the noise from the television and like keeping up with like an actual human conversation. So other than the random bouts of sensory overload, I am doing really well. The chronic illness thing has been obviously one battle after another. Although there's been a lot of hard things that have come from it, I'm just seeing myself grow in the most beautiful ways, and it's really hard to be sad about my current situation when I see the person that I am becoming because of it. And yeah, I really just love myself right now. What is your recovery time going to look like? I don't actually know. On average, to recover from a hysterectomy, they kind of give you like a 6 to 8 week timeline. My body takes longer to heal than most, so it's definitely going to be over that. And then with it being a hysterectomy, outside of like the physical healing of like your incisions healing, your body healing itself, there is a hormonal thing that you go through as well, because you know, menopause is real. Yeah, so it's definitely going to take me a couple months, I would say 3 at least, to kind of get back into a normal swing of things where my body doesn't absolutely hate me with every movement and my hormones start to level out, hopefully. That's kind of one of those things that I'm walking into completely blind, but because I've had so many recoveries and so many bad recoveries, it doesn't necessarily scare me. It's just kind of one of those things that if it's an easy recovery, great, like I'm ready for it. And if it's not, then great, I'm also mentally preparing for that, so bring it on. Did you have to jump through any hoops because of your age? Did anyone have to sign? I am so incredibly thankful of how this whole entire thing came to be. I have not actually found anyone who has been in my situation and has gotten a hysterectomy as young as I am. If you have kind of delved into the endo community to really any extent, you know that the majority of women are refused hysterectomies, and for those who are given hysterectomies, normally it is followed by having to get permission from, I've heard stories of like women having to get their husbands to sign off saying that it's okay that their wife is like offing any potential children. And then I've also known women who have had to get psychiatric evaluations and have had to get psychologists to sign off saying that they are sane enough to make the decision to get a hysterectomy, which is just so ridiculous to me. So I'm really, really grateful that that was not my situation. I think it helps that I have been with my doctor now for a while. He has seen firsthand how much stuff I've tried and how much stuff has failed for no reason. And so I think by having him witness that and go along with me through all of that opens the door a lot easier to be able to broach that conversation without having to jump through the hoops that the majority of women unfortunately have to do. So I'm very, very grateful. And the last question is, how will they help with the hormonal imbalance? That is a good question that I don't entirely have the answer to. If this whole surgery goes the way that I am hoping it goes, then I will be keeping my ovaries to hopefully try to not go through menopause. I thought originally that by keeping my ovaries, that was for sure going to keep me safe from menopause. And then the more I started talking to people, the more I realized that it is still very likely that I'm going to have to go through that, or at least symptoms of that, for a while. I will say that the idea of menopause is by far the scariest aspect of this surgery. And obviously like your hormones impact like your mental stability. So I'm anxious that if I go into menopause, that's going to throw off my mental health and my really great mindset that I have right now regarding this whole entire thing. And I'm just scared that it's going to cause me to backslide a little bit, but I'm working through that in therapy, and we're kind of coming up with a plan of like, worst case scenario, if this happens, like how are we going to handle it? So that's really helpful. I know that I'm, obviously going to get through it, but yeah, I'm preparing for that the best I can just through like therapy and talking about it and writing myself letters to, future me without my uterus. And I'm gonna try to get more details on what that looks like from my doctor as the time gets closer. But yeah, as of right now, that's kind of the scariest aspect of this surgery. I'm very aware that that is going to be not fun. So thank you guys for sending in your questions, and most importantly, thank you guys so much for messaging me and reaching out to me with so much love and encouragement and support. I was honestly really terrified of putting that surgery out there because I know that there are people who disagree and are going to think that I'm making a mistake, and I didn't necessarily want to hear those things. So yeah, I almost didn't make the video, and then I was like, no, this is kind of like the point of like what I'm doing is to bring awareness and to like let people know the realities of like reproductive disease. So I'm really glad that I got over myself and put myself out there, and I'm really glad that it was perceived well, and that I'm surrounded by just so much love. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't seen like my actual hysterectomy video, I will link it up top for you to click on and go on over. I'm kind of emotional in it, it's kind of embarrassing, but that kind of gives you guys the details a little bit and just my general first thoughts on having this procedure and all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.